5 p.m. Ms. Bell, can I get a roll call?
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. I'm actually sitting in the car. Mr. Ochapinti,
Here.
Mr. Lee,
Here.
Mrs. Garrett,
Present.
Miss Tada,
Here.
and Miss Salahuddin.
Here. And then just a run through of our student trustees who are present. We have Trustee Murphy.
Here.
Trustee Green. Are you there, Trustee
He
Green?
typed in the chat.
Oh, he's here. Okay, great.
he's
Thank
here.
you. Trustee Lee.
Here.
Trustee Her.
Here.
Trustee Abuzaria.
Here.
And am I missing any other student trustees? It's hard to tell from the grid. Oh, okay. I got everyone. Thank you. Okay, so moving on our agenda. This is the part where we normally do the pledge, and I know that's going to be an agenda item that we discuss later this meeting. But for right now, the board is chosen to forego the pledge until the last line, justice for all, truly is justice for all. So moving on to the approval of our agenda, turn it over to Dr. Deloria because I know we have a few changes.
Thank you. Yes, I would request, as has been our practice, I would ask that the board remove the consent item A.2.1, or excuse me, 11A.2.1, which is an administrative appointment. Would you please remove that from consent, approve consent without this item, and instead take action on that item following tonight's action item 14.A.1. which is the approval of a job description.
Perfect. Thank you. Unless there are any questions or comments, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Fantastic. Moving on to report out of closed session. The board did meet in closed session, but no action was taken. And now moving on to communications. We have our board report outs, and I'll start with Trustee Her.
I'm sorry. So Oceana has just changed the schedule by taking 5 minutes off each class to allow time for breaks for both teachers and students. And so far, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback. In our academic council, we talked about the back to school plan, and some counselors said they didn't like the idea of going back to school, and that it did the teachers in the certificate program, who said that there were a lot of gray areas in regards to students and their safety, as well as fairness among the students. And that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Trustee Abuzaria.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, Westmore's attendance policy has been updated, so every student needs to attend a class for the first, at least for the first 10 minutes, if their teachers haven't merged cohorts. And on what this also includes Wednesdays, which are office hours. So, but this is on Wednesdays, this is only applied to first period. So students have to attend their first period for the first 10 minutes to take attendance. And then after that, they're free to attend whichever office hour classes they need to attend. There are some students who don't have a first period, like seniors. But we also have an asynchronous check-in for them to fill out attendance. And Ms. Strickland is sending out weekly newsletters to parents and staff, which used to be monthly, but now it's weekly. And our attendance is hovering in the 80%, which is actually down from when we were in person. But there are still some students who have like connectivity issues, but we know that the district is working as fast as possible to get hotspots to those students. So we appreciate the work being done by the district.
Thank you. Trustee Lee?
Adding on to what Mustafa said, so Westmore has a new attendance policy for Wednesdays. We didn't have to, it was optional for office hours. However, some first period teachers have been taking advantage of that and allowing and keeping students in and actually asking questions that they weren't able to answer during class. And yesterday, clubs received a notice about Club Rush. That's going to happen in 2 weeks, and told clubs to prepare for that. And we have 3 or 4 days to prepare. Clubs have 3 or 4 days to prepare for their Club Rush, so that ASB has 1 week to promote Club Rush. So Club Rush is to take place for 3 days. Clubs have 15 minutes to talk about what club they are and like what they do. And it will be taking place Tuesday, October 20th, Thursday, October 22nd, and Friday, October 23rd. And for people who can't attend virtual Club Rush, they have an option. Clubs have to make a video for people who can't attend virtual Club Rush. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Murphy?
Good evening. So at Terranova,
Candace, can you mute? Go ahead, Trustee Murphy.
okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so at Terranova, you know, like you heard from other schools, we changed our schedule. We made the change a few weeks back. And there was an adjustment period there for both students and teachers. But I feel now that both students and teachers have found, you know, a good rhythm that works for everyone. Everyone's kind of settling into this new schedule, this new system we're doing. And I think everyone's starting to get a little more comfortable with it, which is, you know, good to see. We had a virtual spirit week last week, which was, you know, I was really happy to see that the leadership class was able to put that together. You know, through a series of, you know, sending out forms every day to students for them to, you know, send in pictures of them in their spirit gear and stuff like that to get students engaged. And I think that's important to still have that sense of community and engagement. So I was really happy to see that. And I think we're, you know, still just chugging along, doing our best.
Thank you. Trustee Green, are you still having issues speaking? I'm gonna take that as a possible yes. If you want to put something in the chat, I can read it out during my comments. And with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Trustee Ochapinti.
Thank you, President Salahuddin. Yeah, not much to report other than just kind of keeping up with what's going on, I think nationally. There's a lot of news. Obviously, we're in the middle of an election where there are some things on the ballot that directly affect education. Propositions 15 and 16, of course, without going all in on discussing what they're about. The information is out there and they're very important to public education. So I encourage everybody to look closely at that and to think with a mind towards equity and the kind of work we're doing, not just here locally, but statewide and nationally and even internationally. These issues, when we talk about ethnic studies, when we talk about equal opportunity, and when we talk about funding, being under-resourced and being underfunded here in education, those are really important things that are on the ballot. And of course, the candidates that represent those issues in different ways as well. So just encouraging everybody to take a close look and take your time. We have, not take too much time, make sure, of course, to register to vote if you need to and to make sure that you vote. But we do have about a month, right? So, or a little less than a month. So just encouraging that, and it's good to see that our students are staying engaged. It's good to hear that with distance learning, it's a process and it's going to evolve, and some of the progress that's being made in different campuses. It comes down to like 5 minutes difference in terms of class instructional time sometimes. So it's good to hear that those things are being worked out with students. Also the extracurricular activities, because civic engagement is a really big part of our education. And I think civic engagement starts at school. So if you're involved in a club or in associate student body or anything, stay involved and definitely think about what impact that has on not just the campus community, but the community at large, because it does, and it shows. And so just glad to hear our students' voices here, and looking forward to that through the rest of this year.
Thank you. Trustee Lee?
Thank you. It's heartening to listen to the students, especially talking about, how active the ASBs are. And it is fun to track what the ASBs are doing, especially on Instagram, to engage students. Always fun to see the different virtual Spirit Week events and, the Instagram stories at all the different campuses. So kudos to the students once again for finding creative ways to use this strange virtual life that we're all living right now. And I just want to say thank you to all of my fellow board members, and for this weekend when we had our board retreat to continue our discussion on equity. And I know we'll talk about the equity statement later in the agenda, but I just want to say that, very proud of this team of people I get to serve with, and the fact that we were able to, over a couple of weekends, work through and craft that equity statement. And also want to thank, I don't remember who was on the original group that actually came up with the initial 3 statements. I'm sure they'll be addressed later, but I want to thank those individuals as well, because you gave us a fantastic platform to begin with. So thank you for that. And then lastly, nice to see a handful of people earlier today when we got to be out at the housing project construction site, when Ms. Casey, Ms. Alvin, Ms. Hawkins, Ms. Phillips, since the Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo is going to do a little video story about it. And so it was fun to actually have a few minutes to actually even just walk the site, even though there's not a whole lot other than a lot of pipes sticking out of the ground, but to start to see the formation of the U-shaped building is really exciting. So, again, thank you to everybody who is involved in doing it. And it was just nice to get a firsthand look at where we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Garrett?
I would just like to do a quick ad and piggyback back off of Andy, and just saying that I'm really proud to be on the board where we are taking our school district staff and just our community's health as a priority. So I just want, and I'm only bringing this up because that I found out that now I am directly affected by COVID, since my uncle was in the hospital due to certain health conditions. He's older and he didn't have COVID, and now he's in the hospital and he got COVID and he's not doing well. So I just, again, want to just really emphasize that I'm proud of our district just taking our community's health and safety, as the most important thing for everyone. So, and that is all I have to say today. So thanks.
Thank you. Trustee Tejada?
Hi, I also, Ms. Garrett, that is a reminder that this is serious, and I am always glad that we took the steps that we did to stay at home this whole semester. And I am also heartened by all the work we did this past weekend in our board retreat. And I had told my kids we have a board retreat, but it's not a fun retreat. But actually it was fun because, we get into hashing out words, and even one word has a meaning or multiple meanings. So it was really, really good to come together and discuss what equity means to us, and even argue about it, and integrate it with policy. It's very, very important. And I also want to thank, I believe it's Ms. Emmendorfer and Mr. Marenko, you had come up with you know, I think the first 3 drafts of the equity statement, and it really was good for us to look at. And we used your work. So it was very collaborative. And as a parent in the district, you know, at Jefferson, I want to thank Ms. Emmendorfer for always keeping the parent with the weekly newsletter. I live by that. It's so thorough. And Ms. Strickland, weekly newsletter, that is so awesome. Because as a parent, I just need to have that. And I do look at my emails, but for some reason, and I told a lot of my friends that sometimes you're going to find it in the spam folder. So, you know, I whitelisted it, but I am a little nervous about, and this will come up later, but first quarter at Jeff is coming to an end and finals next week. And my daughter doesn't know what to study for finals. They haven't, she's like, what, are you sure? Are you listening? I mean, and I can't help it. I look at Parent View all the time. I'm one of those moms, one of those parents. So, you know, it's, I have to trust she knows how she's doing in the class, you know, and what she has to do to get the work done. But being on a quarter system has changed the way she functions immensely, on top of being at home. So lots of times her classroom is in my office. So, you know, we're haggling over who has to wear the headphones. But I just want to thank everybody for helping us get through so far this semester. And I'm looking forward to, you know, seeing what more we can do for our students.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna go ahead. Trustee Green put this in the chat. I'm just gonna read it out for him. He is from Jefferson. So he said, for certain classes, we've moved to using Google Quizzes to take attendance for both normal and synchronous days. We're also finishing up our quarter next week, so not much extracurricular activities happening at the moment, to make space for this weird moment in our quarter with tests and etc. So that was his update. I want to say thank you to all the principals for being here. It's so nice to see you guys because I don't get to see you as much as I used to when we were able to all meet in person. So thank you for staying up. I know it's a long day and for being here with us. I also was really moved and just given so much drive to continue to move forward in the work with our equity retreat that we had over the weekend. I want to thank our student trustees that came out, Trustee Garcia and Trustee Abuzira, for on a Saturday in the morning, getting up to be a part of that. And so we can ensure that we had students participate and speak about what equity means to them and really take an active role in building our statement, which I'm really proud of. And I think Dr. Marenko and Ms. Emmendorfer for working together with that committee to pull it together so that it started at a community level, came to the board, and now it's being sent back out to the community for vetting. So really a collaborative effort, so thank you. And then the last thing I want to speak to is, you know, really speaking to the fact that COVID-19 is still a thing. It's still, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. And I would ask everyone to please stay diligent in wearing their masks. As you can see, even our president, who is one of the most safest people in the biggest bubble in the world and is tested every single day, still was able to get COVID-19 and has the best medical care available offered to him. And so for those of us that don't have access to that kind of care, we just need to be extra diligent and keep ourselves safe. The only meeting that I'll highlight, I've been to tons, but one of the meetings that I'm really excited about is hopefully partnering with the county so that we can provide a space to offer testing for our community that is the same day result test, so that we can maybe push that out to our parents and our students to come to one of our school sites and get tested, and you get your results in 15 minutes. It's a similar test that they offer at the MBA and what I have at work. Because right now, sometimes the testing results take a long time, and the process that you have to go online and fill out an application online can be challenging for many people in our community. and just offer that barrier, because people aren't going to rush to get tested to see whether they have this. So pulling down some barriers, making it a little bit simpler, not requiring the online requirement, but just offering a walk up and the ability to get tested and get your results immediately, I think is a really exciting new development. And I'm hoping that we're able to offer that at one of our sites of the district in the near future. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Deloria.
Thank you. Kind of along President Salahuddin's conversation. So there were new metrics released today for the County of San Mateo. And while the county overall is improving in its positivity rate and its daily COVID case rate, the equity metric, which was also released for the first time today, shows that we're not closing the gap between our communities where COVID is most widespread compared to our communities in the same county where the virus is less spread. There's a difference of 1%. And so some of the things that President Salahuddin is talking about is what can we do as a county to take these barriers down so more people can get tested? And more importantly, once they get tested, if they test positive, how are we going to support them in that process? So stay tuned. The county is working on this. Every day there's something new. We'll share out when we hear that information. As the board knows, one of our priorities is, the whole time I've been here, has been recruiting and retaining qualified staff. And so I want Ms. Presta to kind of give an update on one of the things we're trying to do to recruit and retain high quality staff. Ms. Presta?
Thank you, Dr. Deloria. So to that end, tonight I've asked Elizabeth Veal and Dwayne Ewing Jr. to come tonight to tell you about a program that I'm really excited about. Last year, the San Mateo County Office of Education called all of the HR professionals together and proposed this idea. And several of the school districts in this county said, yes, we'd like to be a part of it. It's called the New Teacher Residency Program, and it is a collaboration between the San Mateo County Office of Ed and the Alder School of Graduate Education. Dwayne Ewing Jr. is the talent and admissions specialist there, and Elizabeth Veal works for the County Office of Ed. She's the director of the Teacher Residency and Administrative Program. And they're going to show you a presentation tonight. And what I'm most excited about the program, what I'm most excited about is that we're really going to be recruiting from within our community to grow teachers who are sort of one of our own, and that they get some really world-class training, and then we offer them a job. So it's really an exciting thing, and I'm not going to try and explain it because they're going to do a really wonderful job. I'd like to introduce to you Elizabeth Veal. Elizabeth, I believe you can share your screen.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Tony, and everyone. Can everyone see my screen? Yes, great. All right, let me just put it. Tony for it just went away. Great, I might not be sharing my screen. Let me try this again. Sorry about that. In the meantime, while I...
Would you like me to try and share my screen, Elizabeth? Uh-oh.
I think she froze.
I know, this is real life. Why don't I share my screen? They're going to need to present.
Okay.
Did they both?
Dwayne, we can hear you. Pardon me?
If not, I could.
It might be helpful to turn off your video since your sound is still coming in.
Looks like Elizabeth got bumped.
Now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you see me as well, or?
No.
But that we can hear you. So if we put the
Yeah.
presentation up.
If you can, I'll go ahead and share my screen, Dwayne.
Okay. Technical difficulties.
I know, it's real life. Can you guys see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay.
So you just tell me when you'd like me to advance the slide, okay?
Okay, that works. Hopefully the connection is strong. Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you to the entire board and this entire community that is allowing us again to come and present this opportunity. My name is Dwayne Ewing Jr. We can actually go to the next slide. Tony, my name is Dwayne Ewing Jr. and I'm a talent and admissions specialist with Alder Graduate School of Education. And we offer a 1-year master's in teacher residency program, which I'm going to give you an overview of. And I'm also the Black Educators Initiative Coordinator. So we also have a grant within our organization that's specifically looking to increase the amount of Black educators. So that's my role, and I'm a Bay Area native. I'm currently based in Sacramento, but I'm supporting a lot of our Bay Area residencies, and San Mateo County is one of those. So nice to meet you all again. Can move to the next one. And then the next one, and this is Elizabeth, who is my partner, but she apparently we're having connection issues, but it happens. We just got to keep rolling with everything, right? But she is a director of the teacher residency. So Elizabeth will be leading a lot of the experiences that the actual residents who get accepted into the program go through. So she'll be a key point of contact as it relates to the actual residency year and helping our residents get mentors and things of that nature. So there we go. We can go to the next one. So just a quick overview of the agenda for today. We just told you a little bit about ourselves. We're going to tell you a little bit about Alder in general, give a program overview. We're going to share some of our financial information to let you know about some of the costs associated with the program. Then we will be able to go over admissions and have a Q&A at the end. So that's an overview for y'all. We can go to the next one. Tony. Thank you. So at the Alder Graduate School of Education, we believe that we can change the world if every student has access to an exceptional teacher, to exceptional teachers. And our mission is really to create opportunities to cultivate success for every student by recruiting and training excellent future teachers. So this is really grounded in our mission. We believe if we can find and identify individuals from our community that want to make that impact, and we're able to provide them with quality training, that we can ultimately make a huge difference and ultimately change the world one student at a time. So just imagine how different our world would be if every student had an exceptional teacher. How many of you have had exceptional teachers and really strong teachers throughout life, right? Makes a difference. Thank y'all. We can go to the next one. So how is Alder Graduate School of Education different from other credential programs? So as you all may know, your typical graduate school, you take your coursework and do your work. And then after you graduate, you have to go and find work. So we look to bridge that relationship from the very beginning by creating a partnership between us as the graduate school and the K through 12 partner, so that our residents that are going through the program are actually getting that hands-on experience at the campus they will ultimately be working at. So in this case, it will be with you all with San Mateo. So it's really been proven over time that having residents that are able to get that hands-on experience, it makes a really big difference on them being ingrained into that community and having higher retention rates. So that's why we have this model. You can go to the next one. So now I can give you a little bit more of a program overview to some of the specifics of the program. So we can go to the next one, Tony. So the highlights, and it'll be 3 pieces on here, so you can just click forward 3 times. 1, 2, 3, just like that. You see how those appear? It's just, man, I love it. All right, so as far as the experience, right, it's a co-teaching model. So what that means, if you don't know, it just means that our actual residents will be working with a mentor teacher throughout the process, and they will be working through what's called a gradual release model, where as time progresses through the residency year, the resident will get more and more hands-on experience and actually taking control and leading the class. So they'll start off with the mentor doing a lot of leading and role modeling. And then as time progresses, then the resident will take more of a leadership role. but they'll be balancing that throughout the year. And what's great is that they'll be learning all of this pedagogy and knowledge and information in the classroom. But then when they finish class, they get to have a mentor, they get to have conversations and reflect on their experiences and learn from the successes and failures, to have someone that's a coach for them in the classroom, which makes a really big difference. So that's some of the experience. And they actually spend 4 days in the classroom each week getting that hands-on experience. And then they also have a seminar 1 day a week where the director, who is Elizabeth, will be working with them on various aspects of the program. So the next piece is that the education piece, and that's where the residents will be able to get that master's degree and teaching credential at the end of the year. So they can select a specific area of interest typically, but I know we have an emphasis on special education with San Mateo. So they will be able to get a master's in education and with an emphasis in special education within that year. So that's what they will be walking away with. And then as far as employment support, as Tony made a reference to as well, the goal is for them to ultimately be employed after the residency year. That's part of the investment, is that once they finish, the idea is for them to be employed back into your school. So that's the idea. And we call that just priority hiring. They have priority hiring consideration. And that's one of the things we tell residents as they're applying for the program. And then finally, they also will be getting, and when I say they, meaning residents, they will be getting continued professional development. So that'll be ongoing as they're going through the residency year. We can go on to the next slide. So it's a lot of words on this one, so I'll give you just a moment. And Elizabeth was going to be able to go a little bit more specifically into some of this, but I'll just let you all take a look at it briefly. Just speaking to some of the costs as far as what you all will be paying from your district, as well as the stipend that residents will be getting from the program. So if you look at that second bullet point on the left side, you see order matches our stipend. So residents will be able to get that $10,000 stipend for the year. So that is really intended to offset some of the living costs that residents will be having during that year. And we also have grants and scholarships and financial aid that they can use. And I'll be telling you a little bit about that in a moment. So we're really looking again to build the pipeline of teachers that is aimed to be more diverse, for the teachers to stay and work longer, should I say, and to be ultimately more effective. So those are some of the keys. And then on the right side, for the actual school year for 2021, that's when the program will be coming. It'll be 3 Fridays per month for the residency seminar, and that will be something that Elizabeth is leading. And then 1 Friday per month seminar for mentor teachers, because the mentor teachers also get training. And then there will be weekly coaching sessions for the mentors and resident pairs in their classrooms. So just a little bit of a snapshot of the commitment, as well as some of the things that the mentors and residents will be experiencing. We can go to the next one. All right, how's everyone doing? I know I've been talking for a long time. All right, we're halfway there. We're almost there.
Thank you.
And perfect. And Elizabeth did let me know that she's having some connectivity issues. So, you know, it's no worries. We're going to just keep this thing going. Hopefully she can make it in. So as far as our demographics, this is something that really makes Alder stand out from the typical graduate school. And that is because we have a really diverse cohort of students that typically come through our program. So 47% of our students speak 2 or more languages. 51% are Pell Grant recipients. 71% of our last cohort identified as people of color, being like historically underrepresented groups, being African American, Latinx, Asian Pacific Islander, and so forth. And then 67% of residents are the first one in their family to have graduated. So we have a lot of first generation college students. So you can see some of the demographics that we have at Alder that makes us a little bit more distinct from some other graduate schools. Go to the next slide. Financial information. This is the important stuff, especially for the residents. They want to know how much does it cost. So I'll give you a rundown. Go to the next one. All right, so the core components of the order teacher residency, whenever you see ATR, that's what that means. The financial package, as far as the program costs, the tuition is $19,000 for the year. And that's approximately, we're still working to get that finalized, but that's like the range of what it will be. And then for books and tests and other things, that we approximate that to be around $2,000 for the year. As far as the benefits, residents will be able to get $10,000 for the year. They will also get federal financial aid and loans if they apply and are accepted, which can be up to $46,000, and that's to cover any additional costs and expenses that they'll have through the year. So we actually will have a tracker that we can give to residents to kind of scope out what their cost of living and so forth will be, and that'll help them plan out for the year. And then we also have scholarships and grants that they can apply for that vary depending on the specific ones they apply for. Plus we provide testing support. So we provide a 50% discount on their testing materials for studying, as well as testing support. For testing support also, we also provide a $300 stipend. So that's a breakdown of some of the numbers. All right, admissions. This is the key part. How do they get into the program? We have a couple of simple qualifications. We can go to the next slide, Tony. And here they are. The first one is for them to be able to have a bachelor's degree by the end of June 2021. That's key, right? Even if they don't have the degree right now, as long as they'll have it by this coming June and be graduating, then they'll be able to apply and be eligible. The second one is that we have a preferred GPA of a 2.65. If they have below a 2.65, we do have a GPA appeal that they would be able to submit. Really, that number, the 2.65, we just want to make sure that residents will be able to be successful, because this is an intensive program with it being, compacted into 1 year. We just want to make sure we're setting them up for success. So if they didn't have that GPA, they can still apply. They just will need to submit an appeal, which will allow them to kind of share some of their experiences when they were in college. And then the final one is they will need to be eligible to work in the United States. And we do accept DACA as well, along with the other things, the other benefits. So that's that. Thank you. You can go to the next one. And then here's the point. This is the action item that I'm hoping to push out. I've already been able to connect with Tony, Elizabeth, and I have. So really, this is the opportunities for collaboration. And first things is that our upcoming deadline is going to be on November 9th. So that's when we're going to be closing applications. So we're getting the word out to as many potential residents as possible. So anyone at your schools, communities, anyone you know that may be interested, please spread the word, because we are in full swing with the recruitment season. The website is right there. If you go to ordergsd.edu/apply, I'll put it in the chat also. You will be able to get more information about the program. And some things that you might see coming your way are referrals. So we send out referrals for people who refer individuals to our program. They are able to get like a gift card from Amazon and so forth if they're able to get someone to apply. And we also have virtual events and webinars sessions that we host as well. So we're connected with Tony. We're giving her information. So stuff will be coming your way. And if you have any questions, I'll put my information in the chat also, and you can always reach out. And I am finished.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you. This is a great program. And so, yeah, board, since it's not on the regular agenda, if you do have any questions, we could forward them to Tony and she can get those answered for them. And there's also the information in the chat. So thank you. We can.
Ms. Salahuddin, may I also say that we're going to be sending out, and I will be sending out an email tomorrow to our district staff for an information session that Dwayne's going to be holding.
All right. So if you could stop sharing your screen.
Oh, goodness.
No, it's okay.
If I can figure it out. I don't know why I can't right now. Let's see. Okay.
All right. So I'm now going to kick it over to our AFT Local 1481 President, Ms. Casey.
Thank you very much. So there's there's been so much going on. A lot of communication with staff members and the community. I just feel like we're working all the time. And so I want to remind people that, you know, we're on another Zoom meeting and just how much people are working and connected to these devices instead of connecting to live people. This is better because I can see all your faces, and but when you're viewing a lot of names with no faces, it's harder. And I think that we need to realize that our staffs are having a lot of fatigue, as all of us are. Some of the positive things that are happening, district labor management has been meeting throughout the time that I've been here and before. And site labor management has also been happening, and we're doing a little restart. We're going to have a training next week with all of the site reps and the AFT exec board and all of the principals, administration who are invited to come. And we're going to do a little bit of training so that we can all kind of start again and be at the same place. So Tony and I are doing a little training next week. So I appreciate all of you that are going to come. And I am putting something in the chat for the Youth Leadership Institute. They're having a candidate forum on Thursday from 6 to 8 via Zoom. I know another Zoom. And it's really for the youth to become engaged in Daly City's politics and kind of figure out the candidates. So let's see if I can put that in the chat so people can check that out. And then I just want something to say about what's happening with the colors and the new metrics and everything. I just want to remind us that we really need to take time and not rush into changing what we're doing due to what the county is saying or the state is saying, because as you've noticed, I've noticed, it's almost daily. I know Dr. Deloria has noticed it's almost daily that there's changes. So I'm really, really worried that we see that something's changed for the better, and then we go, oh, we're gonna be able to do this and that and jump 2 feet in, because we really don't know what's going to happen 2 days from then. The metrics have been changing constantly. And I know that the number one priority is to keep our students, our staff, and our community safe. That's been a priority of ours. And I want us to really keep that right here, right in the front of our brains, always. I know there's a lot of staff that are really, really worried about the return to school groups that have been meeting and are stressing out. So we just really, really need to keep that in mind, because those metrics keep changing. And so until those metrics stay stable, I just really want to push us not to plan on making any big changes to our education, our educational system and how we do things here. We should just do the right thing, follow the science. And since that's changing so much constantly, and who's giving us that information, I'm really, really worried. So that's all I have to say right now. I just did want to ask, there's some topics coming up later that if I could be invited to speak at those times, if I'm able to raise my hand at those times, is that acceptable? Okay, then I won't talk about them now. Thank you.
No problem. Moving on to the consent agenda with the exception of item 11A21, that is now 14A2. Can I get a motion to approve consent?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Guys are late. Any opposed? Awesome. Ms. Garrett, do we have any cards for public comments?
We do not tonight.
Great. Moving on to our discussion items. First item in education services is fall 2020 progress report grades presentation. Turning it over to Ms. Baca.
Good evening, President Salahuddin. Good evening, members of the board and lovely principals. I just want to say I really want to thank our principals and Dr. Robinson for being here to potentially answer some questions and have a discussion about the grading presentation that you will see from the first progress report. So I will share my screen. Okay, so as a continuation of our discussion with grading policies, I'll be presenting some information on grades earned by students during the first progress report period, which ended on September 18th. We will be reviewing grades earned at the 4 comprehensive high schools. And please note that Thornton High School is not included as they did not have grades readily available as they operate in a quarter system. And students earn variable credits too. So if we would like, we can do a separate presentation for Thornton High School later on. But before I begin, again, I want to express my appreciation to all of the teachers, staff, administrators who are constantly adapting to the demands of distance learning. I really appreciate this hard work, the flexibility, the patience during these difficult times. And I'm just very, very happy and proud to be working alongside the staff members at Jefferson Union. So the objective for tonight is to review the progress report grades earned during this time where it's a much more rigorous curriculum and expectation than when we were in the spring during at-home learning. These grades were awarded based on the traditional grading system of A, B, C, D, and F. So the topics that I'll be covering tonight, the first part will be talking about distribution of grades using the data from the fall progress reports. And I'm comparing this from the last 3 years, so 2018-19, 19-20, and 2021. Please note that the first set is really the total number of grades earned. So it's not just one grade, but the total number of grades earned. Then we're going to be looking at it on a student level, where we're going to look at the percentage of students per school site who receive at least 1 F, and then I will separate that into student groups as well. And then I will be sharing some potential root causes of why our grades are they are currently, and some potential action steps, and then discuss. So I just want to remind you that in this presentation, and also, as you know, Jefferson is operating under a quarter system. So the data is for the school is separated than Oceana, Terra Nova, and Westmore. So the first few slides refer to the 3 school sites. So this chart is a marked distribution chart. So it shows all of the grades earned by students in the last 3 years during the first quarter. So a typical student has 6 grades. So if you can see on the left-hand side, for 2021, there were 16,652 grades available. And the chart shows you the percentage of the A's, the B's, the C's, the D's, and the F's. Blue is the 18-19 data. Red is 19-20, and orange is 2021. So just as an example, in fall 2020, 53% of the grades earned are A, 15% are B, 8% C, 5% D, and 12% F. So as you can see from this trend for this quarter, at least the first progress report, we've seen an percentage increase of A's by 5 percentage points. The B's, the C's, and the D's decreased. But you will also notice that the percentage of F increased by 4 percentage points. So this kind of just talks about where we are during COVID, that the students probably that are more resourced are continuing to get A's, if not better, but the ones who are getting F, it's just there's a lot more students getting F at this time. You'll also notice that a pass, there are some grades here under the pass. And so those are the grades earned by students in our certificate track currently. You'll also notice that there are 4% of no marks. So those no marks are used by for the students that are late enrollees because they just transferred into our district. And some of the students are also some students from Terra Nova, where there were students were decided to given a no mark because there were adjustments during the transition from combining cohorts. There was a delay of materials distribution that includes hotspots and mobile devices. And because of that, the teachers felt like that the students, should be given an opportunity to make that up, and no grades are earned just yet. So in the next few slides, I'm gonna go over each of the school sites trends. So here's Oceana High School. As you can see, it's a similar pattern with increase in A's and then increase in F's also from last year to this year. Same pattern for Terra Nova, increase in A's and increase in F's. And Westmore also has the same pattern where there is an increase in A's and also an increase in F's. So before I show you Jefferson High School, you'll see two charts for Jefferson High School. One is for the semester system and another one for the quarter system. So I just want to preface that the grades pulled from Jefferson High School was a snapshot of a grade book. The grade book at Jefferson High School was not set up to have a progress report period where teachers could actually post their grades, unlike the other school sites. So for the other school sites, teachers had the opportunity to validate and post their grades, make sure that it meets the teacher's grading policy. This is, again, is just a snapshot. So whatever was in the grade book was taken at that time. So what we are trying to see with the IT department is if we can set up a progress report period for the second quarter to potentially avoid the data that we will see in a little bit. So here's the semester system for the last 2 years at Jefferson. So the A's increased from 1819 to 1920, and the percentage of F's pretty much remained the same. In the quarter system, however, as you can see, 41% of the students received an A, and there is 18% or 18% of the grades, or 18% of the grades were F. So again, I just want to point out that these grades do not and should not reflect and be used as the main indicators to evaluate the effectiveness of Jefferson's quarter system. As I mentioned earlier, this is just a snapshot. And some teachers have policies of dropping the lowest grade, not using average, changing their zeros to 50s, and this was not reflected when this data was pulled in the snapshot. So now I want to look at the student level. So this is the percent of students who received at least one F at Jefferson, Oceana, Terra Nova, and Westmore. There were 4,070 students total. And out of that, 1,278 of the students received at least one F, which is about 31% of the students. And of the students who received an F, I wanted to see what is the ethnic distribution of the students who received an F. So for instance, for African American, 29 out of the 1,278 received an F, which is 2% of the whole entire students that earn an F. I wanted to compare that to the district's ethnic distribution. So the whole entire district, there's about 1% African Americans. And as you can see, there is a slight disproportion. Asian, 6% of Asian students receive at least one F, and the district ethnic distribution is 12%. Filipinos 20, and the ethnic distribution is 28. And I really want to point out our Hispanic Latinx student because of the students that failed, 44% of them were Hispanic. And if we look at the district ethnic distribution, there's 32%. So there's a definite disproportionality issue in that situation. There's the Native American, Pacific Islander, two or more, white, and then decline to state. So in the next slide, I'm gonna break it down by school sites. So at Jefferson High School, there is 1,328 students currently enrolled, and 450 students earned at least one F. So that's about 34%. And down the column is the ethnic breakdown of the students that receive at least one F. Oceania, about 23% receive at least one F. At Terra Nova, about 31% receive at least one F, and at Westmore, 33% receive at least one F. And again, I want to highlight the disproportionality among our Hispanic and Latinx students across all of the school sites. And there are a couple standouts like the two or more population at Terra Nova, the white students at Westmore, and the African-American students at Jefferson High School. So there's a bit of disproportionality in those areas. I also wanted to look at the percent of students who received F. What is the percentage of our students learning English? So out of the 1,278, 372 of them are students learning English. And the district-wide demographics for that is 15%. 12% of the students that failed are with an IEP, and our district distribution is 10%. And 57% of students receiving free or reduced meal received at least one F, and our percentage is 29%. And again, I want to highlight our Hispanic Latinx students with at least one F. So 558 students receive at least one F. And out of that 558, there are also students learning English. 84 of the 558 are students with IEP, which is about 15%. And 256 students are receiving free and reduced meal, and that's about 46%. And 57 out of the 558 Hispanic Latino students are both students learning English and with an IEP. So that is about 10%. So after speaking with several staff members, we looked at potential root causes to explore and discuss. So one of the potential issues that came up is the grading practice of having zeros in the grade book. And when you have zeros and you average out those grades, it's very difficult to catch up and pick yourself back up to at least a grade of a D. So I'm going to show you a sample grade book that shows just that in a little bit. We also, of course, talk about the access and opportunity. Some of our students, because of distance learning, they're not able to participate in distance learning at all, either because of home issues, COVID-related issues, device access, basic needs, mental health needs. So our school sites have done a really good job, reaching out to our families, but it's something that we can continue to improve on and supporting our students who really need access and just more support in order to be able to be successful during distance learning. The other thing that we had talked about is gradebook logistic issues. So after reviewing some of these grades, there were some anomalies that I didn't think it made a lot of sense. So what came out was there were some gradebook sync issues with Google Classroom and Synergy. Our wonderful English learner, Tosa, teacher in special assignment, Lisa Rubin, had created a document to share with the ed techs and the principals to help our teachers configure their Google Classroom and Gradebook Sync so that the grades sync seamlessly. Also, because we're only for, we've been here for 5 weeks, because first quarter or the first progress report has been reduced to 5 weeks, there were less gradebook assignments perhaps. There's also a potential issue of just, not understanding how the gradebook is set up. So for instance, a teacher could assign different values for an assignment, and then to top it all off, weigh it differently. So a test could be 15%, or a homework could be, 5%. But the way points are compounded, it might not be what teachers intend their grade book to be. So again, there may be some issues with grade book setup as well. The other potential issue is grading philosophy. So for many, many years, we've been operating under the traditional philosophy where, again, it's A, B, C, D, F, and students are graded based on participation. Students are graded based on, where they had followed exact instructions, even though they may have gotten the content, but they may have missed just a couple of, punctuation error. I'm, exaggerating, but I'm saying that, that traditional mindset it's probably still happening at this point. So we're trying to move towards proficiency-based grading, and that is our goal in the future. But I know that one of, again, the reasons perhaps why these grades are they are is because of that. Another, example is accepting late work. So we really need to look at late work policy and, really think about the circumstances that we're in right now, that we need a lot more flexibility and grace, because we are all in this together and it's not the perfect world right now. So we really need to be understanding, but doesn't mean lower the standard. It just means that, we need to work together to make sure that the students are still learning. However, we should let go of some of the old practices that we've had for many, many years. Here's a sample grade book, just to point out that, the zeros could actually really affect a student's grade. So that third line over there, the one with the 44%, I just happened to change the zeros into 50%, which is still enough. And after I done that, the grade had turned into a 60% and the student would have passed. So I know that some of our teachers are already using that practice, but perhaps it's something that we can continue to discuss with our teachers and staff. Some suggestions to explore that came up from students and staff as well was, well, during this time, do we give credit or no credit instead of the grading scale? So after looking at this data and after looking at what the colleges expect, to me, the credit or credit doesn't really make sense right now, because even if we change it to no credit, it doesn't really resolve the issue of the high number of Fs that we have. And also, as far as the credit, they will not get a GPA. And so GPAs right now are very important even though UC and CSU say that they will take credit, no credit, pass or no pass, they still have the minimum GPA requirement of a 2.0 for CSU and 3.0 for the UC. So if we remove that, then the students will not have a GPA perhaps for the whole entire year. I'm also worried about financial aid for Cal Grant, where there's a 2.0 GPA requirement. There's also work permit, athletic eligibility. And so I think at this point, it's really important to keep the letter grades. There was also a question on can we include percentages on transcript if the credit or no credit policy is in place? So I had asked EduPoint Synergy if this is possible, and Synergy is not able to do this at this time. And also, if we do this, I just want to, go back to the slide that, we have many varying Fs right now, and seeing a 4% F or a 14% F, I don't know what that will do to the self-esteem of our students currently. Another thing to potentially explore was, the incomplete grade. This was brought up. I actually would not recommend this right now because, again, the students that are not completing the work, I don't know what the likelihood of them being able to complete the work within 6 weeks. Plus, we put the burden on the teachers to grade this work after the semester. We can continue to expand the D grade band, but this probably will not happen during this semester because the grade book are already set in place. But the changing the grading scale, removing the 0 to 49 and just making, or the super F, that could still be done at the teacher level on their grade book. So that's another option to explore. So some potential action step, discuss the grading results and practices with our staff and our principals to determine potential root causes during collaboration meetings. Look at the potential gradebook syncing issues. And I know our principals have done an amazing job in making sure that, that our ed techs are working with our teachers and making sure that there is no syncing issues anymore. Offer some professional development on the grade book nuances like weighting, averaging, and things like that. And I just want to let you know that all of our school sites, or Jefferson, Westmore, Terra Nova, and Thornton, are working with Dr. Twaddell with our PLC to really start the process of moving towards standards-based grading. So Terra Nova staff, their guiding coalition, and I are actually going to start a book club on proficiency, moving towards proficiency. So we are starting with that. And perhaps where we are right now, we stay with traditional grading, but we see if our administrators could speak with our teachers to see if, the students that receive an F, have a discussion. Did this student learn enough materials to earn a pass, maybe a grade of a P, in order to get a credit for the class instead of an F? And that is pretty much all I have. So I'll stop my screen and any questions.
Thank you. Opening up for questions, comments. Ms. Garrett.
Thank you for the presentation, Ms. Baca. I just have one question. Do you have a theory as to why the A's are up, the A's and the F's are up at the same time? Because that kind of seems a little bit off to me, but I don't know if that's just kind of typical.
So from what I've heard is that it actually makes sense because some teachers during COVID distance learning, they will take, late work, or they will have them keep accepting the late work when they used to not accept it before. So some, they understand the world we live in, so they're much more forgiving when it comes to that and are allowing to take the work. But then for the F, it could be that, the students are just not here. We haven't contacted them. So what we are trying to see is, can we get a report that correlates their grades with absences? And so that is one report that we are asking our IT department.
Thank you.
Thank you. I see 2 raised hands. I'll go first to Trustee Ochapinti.
Thank you, President Saladin. Thank you, Karine. This is a great presentation. I think it's really important just to know the data. We've talked about it before. Obviously, just a couple of things I want to point out that you did. the fact that 12% have an IEP overall, it seems like, and 10% of those students in the Latinx community have an IEP and are receiving Fs are really disturbing trends. Just for the fact that general practice in my experience is you're not handing out Fs to students with IEPs, especially when they're not receiving full accommodations and modifications. That's a violation of an IEP, right? Usually, unless a student is completely absent from the classroom or something really, extreme. So that in itself, I'm glad that the potential steps list, I think, ideas that can approach, not even just approach, but really just directly offer that consultation and redirection for teachers who don't have that training. The other part that I think needs to be pointed out that you did, and I think that needs to be emphasized is we can have students who are disconnected through Wi-Fi, but if we as teachers are disconnected to their experiences, then we are the ones who are out of touch, right? And I learned this as a professional in education, that you have to meet your students more than halfway, and it's going to be hard. It's probably going to be harder for some students and easier for others. And as Trustee and Garrett pointed out, and as you just point out, the disparity in some students earning more A's and more F's just shows that there's a gap that's widening, and students in between aren't necessarily doing better. And so I would like to see just more data to follow up on maybe how teachers are providing MTSS, like response to intervention, RTI, positive behavioral intervention supports, right? Digitally, it's not easy. And so I don't expect that everybody's going to do a great job doing it right away, but these are the kind of things that are hard enough to implement in the classroom in person. I can only imagine difficulty because we're doing this in the spring, moving into the fall with students adjusting to this, not knowing what end is in sight. I just, I want to just say, I appreciate all the work that our staff, all of our staff are doing to adjust and adapt. It's not going to be easy, but I hope that these are really serious points for reflection and also for intervention for all of us, so that we can start to correct how we're going to approach it in a way that is equitable and that takes in student input. And so I'll pass the mic because I know that student trustee wants to speak on that, and I would love to hear it.
Okay, thank you.
Or Kareem,
Yep, no worries, I got it. So next up is Trustee Abuzdan.
Thank you, Ms. Baca, for the informative presentation. I have a couple comments and I also have a question. So like for teachers who aren't giving zeros, like how does that work? Like if a student doesn't turn in an assignment, is it not entered into the grade book or is it entered in as a 50? Like I don't understand like the valuation process behind it.
So it will really depend on the teacher. So some teachers, if they don't submit anything, they, instead of giving them a 0, they still give them an F, but it's 50%. But also there are some teachers that really, separate the, the learning targets of what the students really learn versus being able to submit something on time, like separating the behaviors versus what do they really know in the materials that they are learning. So right now we don't have a standard yet. We're just beginning to discuss, and some of our teachers are experimenting with the removing the super F. So instead of giving them a 0, which when you average 0, 0, 0, how many zeros will it take to continue, to pass? I mean, even if you get 100% 3 times, that's still an F, that's still 50%. So right now it varies per teacher, but we do have some teachers trying that out where if they see a 0, they will put 50%.
Oh, okay, I see. So from my experience, I noticed that generally teachers are more like empathetic towards like late work. I think I can't like speak on behalf of teachers, but I think part of the reason might be that certain deadlines on Google Classroom will be like 11:59 p.m. or whatever, right? But like if we were in person, there'd be like no such thing as an 11:59 deadline. like in a math class where like the homework is checked in the beginning of class the next day. So like I noticed that some teachers don't really care if you turn an assignment like a couple hours late or like 30 seconds late or whatever. I do appreciate that. And to speak on like why there's more F's and there's more A's, that could also be due to like there's not a lot of assignments for certain classes and the pace of classes is actually a lot slower. Like for example, in my math class, we're just wrapping up chapter 1 right now. And in my history class, we just got our first quiz assigned this week. So there's not, and also homework is generally graded on completion for like certain classes like math. So at least in my experience. So, you know, if you do the homework, you get full credit on it. And that's like the bulk of your grade right now. I'm not complaining, you know, like my grade is, I'm satisfied with where my grades are right now, but I think the data right now is not necessarily, like you already stated, this is not necessarily like a full indication of where we should go. And I'm like interested to see like the data at the end of the first semester. Also, I don't really, like I know GPA is important, but I don't really see it as equitable to have like distance learning, like while we're in distance learning, factor into like a person's GPA just because there's so many factors outside of like the district's control. You know, the district is doing its best job to eliminate gaps, but there's only so much we can do. But then also at the same time, we don't know how long we're going to be in distance learning. Like to me, it just looks like the time we'll be in distance learning keeps seeming longer and longer. I don't know. I'm just really concerned about the evaluation of student grades right now. I don't really think, you know, an A right now or an F right now is any indication of how much a student has learned. And even like before, I like didn't necessarily agree with the grading system, but now it's just even more apparent. And there's just so much, like it's harder to learn just in general, you know, like learning trig virtually is not fun. Let me just say that, you know. It's just super difficult, and like there's only so much Khan Academy you can watch before you understand something. And like even before, I use like Khan Academy as like a last resort type of thing. And it's just harder to like, you know, get that experience. There are certain classes that you need to be in person to like understand the material. And I think like math and science, which are classes that I don't know, at least from what I see, are harder for people from disadvantaged communities because one, the material isn't always put in the most like accessible language, so it's harder to understand. And those are classes where students are missing out on a lot from a lack of an in-person experience.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Trustee Lee, I know your Trustee Andy Lee, I know your hand was up, but I am going to just keep it on the student trustees right now, if you don't mind, and clicking it over to Trustee Murphy. And the other student trustees, like this is really why you're here. And I'm hoping that you all will speak up on this topic. And Trustee Green, if you want to put something in the chat, I can read it out for you. So turning it over to Trustee Murphy.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I agree with everything Mustafa said. I think first of all, if you think learning trig over Zoom is hard, try calculus. That ain't that's no walk in the park there. Um, but yeah, I think, you know, I was struck by, you know, the same slide of A's versus F's in, you know, that discrepancy. And the way I see it is we're in an extreme situation, and we're going to get extreme results out of it. The two extreme results on a grading scale being A's and F's. And I think it is hard to nail down, you know, what is leading to that, because I think, you know, you could make the argument that, you know, there's certain students who feel more comfortable in an online environment, and that has allowed them to excel, and that is, increase the number of A's. And you could also say there's a number of students who, aren't comfortable with the online environment. It doesn't suit their, you know, it doesn't work for how they learn, and that has led to the increase in Fs. But it could also be that, some the increase in Fs is, students with, is that an F because the student doesn't understand and isn't, retaining the information through this form of learning, or is it because he has bad Wi-Fi and it's something out of his control? I think, there are so many uncontrollable variables in play right now that it really is hard to, pin down an exact source of, why is this happening? And because of that, it's hard to, find a solution. But I think we I don't know what you do with that. I just feel that, it's there's just a lot in play right now, and it's difficult, and we just have to be able to adapt and be supportive, in whatever way we think is best. And if the way we think is best is wrong, we have to be able to, change and just constantly evolving, constantly adapting, constantly, trying to help as best we can, as well as, um, celebrating, and supporting that increase in the students who got A's. I think, that's really, great to see as well. So I think, we want to continue to support those who are succeeding, without leaving, those who are struggling behind. And we also want to, vice versa, we don't want to focus all our energy on those who are struggling, because, those who are doing well deserve their recognition as well. And I think, I don't know how you do that. It's hard to be in two places at once, but I think, yeah, I don't know. I just, it is an interesting situation to see those two extremes, and how you know, work with both at the same time.
Thank you. Opening up to our student trustees, Lee or her, if you have any comments. Oh,
I had a quick comment. I just wanted to say, Mustafa covered a lot, and so did Trustee Murphy. But I also wanted to say, I think maybe another reason why grades have been so, the outcomes have been so different is because it was such a drastic change, and we're all still adjusting. And I don't think that students and teachers would have adjusted by now. It takes so much longer to adjust this, especially like teachers condensing all of their lessons, and all of us going on Zoom, and it's hard to focus, and there's so many things that are different, and that's why people are still getting used to it. And yeah, I don't think this will be a very fast change. That's all.
That was great. Thank you.
Can I also say something?
Yes, please.
So I just want to say thank you to all the staffs and all the teachers for all the dedication they put for students to learn. Like I saw in some classes how only the teachers' cameras on and all of the students are cameras off. And like for teachers, that's gonna probably feel devastating. Like they don't know if the students are actually observing the information that they should be learning in class. So I just want to say thank you, because I know teachers spend like multiple hours trying to plan just for one day and for one cohort. So, and I know that some teachers have to make 4 different tests for all the different cohorts they have, so they don't cheat off each other and all that. So I just want to say thank you to all the teachers for their dedication and hard work.
Thank you. Trustee Andy Lee.
Thanks. A couple of things just coming to mind. You know, when I first was looking at this, just in preparation for tonight's meeting, I was thinking about, when we had the grading discussion a few weeks back and seeing the results of what the proposed grading change survey was saying, what the staff were saying, and made me think about the document that many of us have read over the past couple of years, the water of systems change, and the explicit change and the implicit change, and the fact that the change in the grading policy is an explicit sort of thing, but it really can't succeed unless the implicit change in each of us really occurs, when we actually do buy in. And so I am heartened to hear that these discussions are continuing on and at that PLC level. But I would just encourage our administrative staff, as we take our teams through this, to continue to think about the fact that we do really need true buy-in from staff if we're going to make some of these changes that we hope to see, whether that is something that ultimately happens or not. The other thing is just the concerning statistics regarding our Hispanic students and what are the root causes there. I'm grateful to see the breakdown by students learning English, IEPs, free and reduced meals, which was a really shocking percentage, but it does speak to these extraneous issues that are surrounding their lives. And I think we probably need to go a little bit deeper and find out what's going on with these students, with this student population in particular. So, but thank you so much for this. This is helpful. It's a good start, and I'm glad that we are getting this, in darn near real time and being able to have the chance to discuss it now.
Thank you. So I'm going to read Trustee Green put his comments in the chat. He said, I completely agree with Trustee Murphy. I can only speak from my personal experience, which is with teachers who are trying to cram a whole bunch of information in a small period of time that they are given. I don't think this is an ideal situation for them or for us, but we also haven't found, the most ideal situation. So I don't know the answer to this problem. It just feels sometimes in class, you either get it or you don't. Turning it over to Trustee Tejada.
I really, really appreciate everything that our students have shared tonight. Like we've always said, students, they're the only ones who can tell us what students are going through, and that you're very honest, and I really appreciate that. And I do agree with Mr. Lee and probably everybody else here that the numbers that are very concerning are those with that 67% and the free and reduced lunch students, and also the disproportionality with the Hispanic Latinx students. We have to find out the why, and actually when I got the report and opened it up, I was expecting it to be worse. Because like Mr. Murphy said, this is a constantly evolving situation. And, it's the first progress report. And for, like Jefferson on the quarter system, where was the, it happened so fast and everybody is adjusting. So how well can they adjust to this? The teachers and the students. I mean, I actually asked my daughter, can you at least turn on your camera to say hello or goodbye to your teacher? And she's a very outgoing person, but in this environment, when she's put in a breakout room, she says, oh my God, I have to talk now. And these are with her peers. It's not even with the teachers. So this situation is just, to how much weight do we put on that F, but I can see what that can do to a student's morale when they're already, like Mr. Murphy or somebody said, that, you know, are they really learning? Are they absorbing, or they are not attending? Or, I mean, sometimes the struggle with, she's gonna hate me for this, but sometimes the struggle with my daughter is, I tell her, when you're in class, you cannot be lying down. You have to sit up in class. You are in class, you know, and give me your phone. You are in class. But it just doesn't feel like it. So, and so for me to observe this and just want the best for my daughter who's taking some, you know, really hard classes, yeah, I don't know. I don't know how she's going to do. She's a straight A student, but this environment is super hard to adjust to. And we just hit the first quarter.
Thank you. Trustee Abu-Zaria?
I just wanted to add one more thing. I'm concerned. One thing I'm worried about is like the long-term effects of distance learning. In terms of like this is something that like came to my head when Trustee Murphy brought up taking calculus, like which was a class I plan on taking next year as a senior. I'm worried about like especially our lower classmen, like the classes that are foundations for the next classes, and like how that's going to work. Like you go into math course 2, for example, but you didn't learn everything that you needed to learn in math course 1, and you're just like, you'll constantly be behind. And I think it'll just have like a snowballing effect. But I just want to say that I do appreciate the board and the district for paying attention to this issue. And I'm also grateful to the teachers for being understanding during this time.
Thank you. So I'm just gonna say these things. When we were first told about the grading policy, we were told, you know, it wasn't great. And then I opened the presentation and I was like, what? I mean, brava. I'm just gonna start off with just that. To all the principals on the call, brava, because I was not expecting to be that good. Quite personally, with everything that's going on around us, I know like Trustee Tejada talked about her daughter laying down to do class. Like I lay down sometimes to do work meetings if they don't require me to have the camera on, real talk. Because I am trying to get through today, mental health wise, with all of the privilege that I have been wrapped in, with the ability to work from home. I don't have to worry about my rent. I can pay my rent. We don't have to worry about food. I don't have to worry about going outside if I don't have to. In the days it was too smoky to go outside, we ordered stuff. I was able to afford to do that. And with all of that privilege, steeped in all of that privilege, it is sometimes too hard for me to hold my head up and to go to a meeting. So when we talk about we don't know why, or why are things happening, you know, I think we do know why. The data is very clear. In San Mateo County, 65% of the people who have COVID are people of color. And of that percentage, almost the vast majority of those are from the Latino, Latinx community. On top of that, there's the rent eviction that has to be renewed. The rent eviction moratorium has to be renewed every month and a half. So there's a whole bunch of people who are consistently worried about losing their home and trying to frantically keep on top of paying their rent if they're behind and are part of that program, because they don't know in 2 months from now, is that moratorium going to end and they're going to lose their job. On top of that, a lot of our students' families have lost a job and are working different kind of jobs, backup jobs, have to have their kids work jobs. On top of that, everything was on fire. Like on top of that, our president does something crazy every single day. I mean, every single day. On top of that, you know, it's just like, so the fact that we are educating anybody is amazing to me, is amazing. And I think as educators and as people who are steeped in education, all of you, you guys are just so accustomed to MacGyvering things with you're handed nothing and then you turn it into education. We can't MacGyver this. Just real talk. We cannot. So the fact that that it is never great to have 18% or 14% or 12% of our students receiving an F. But I don't see how that outcome is hard for the inevitability of that outcome with the challenges that are currently being faced by our communities right now. And the lack of any type of real assistance from anyone in any area, from the county, from the city, from the state, or the federal government. We've been left alone to figure this out. So, you know, I'm hoping that you guys are not taking this report as a, you know, as a failure, because I think this is success. I think this is success. So, in that we do need to look at and target what we can do and what we're able to do, but then also realize we're only able to do so much. We can only do so much. We can only mitigate this so much. So I do think that we do need to be diligent about the grading policy and really look at the grading policy and how can we get through this with those families that we're talking about that are going through, that don't have the privilege that I have and that I would be able to give my children if they were in high school right now. What can we do so that the rest of those students' lives aren't irreparably marred by what's happening right now? And that's a huge piece of that, is not having a high school diploma. So, and I am not an expert on the grading policy, and so I really look to all of you to help give me guidance. But I know what we did last year. I was really proud of the work that we did last year. So if it's an ABC hybrid or whatever we need to do, we lowered the grading requirements, like whatever we need to do to ensure that we get most of our students through here with the basic level of support so that they can continue their lives. And we know that that thing is that piece of paper. How do we do that? And at the same time, continue the advocacy at the county level and at the state level to ensure that our students have Wi-Fi. We continue to feed as many kids as possible, because that free and reduced lunch stat is like the stat for me. That there are wraparound services that come with testing and what happens when you test positive. Because none of those numbers are going to change until the support to those families in our community changes. We can't do this by ourselves. So I'm really hoping that we can collectively, and that, you know, I am not ready to bring anybody back to school at any time right now, but what I hope that a major focus of those return to school meetings are about this very thing. What can we do to help mitigate the effect, knowing that we can try our best at this and we're not capable of reaching as many students as possible. So what do we do to mitigate that piece of it, and how can we help as many of our students possible through this? And then also mental health wise, how do we not cause more trauma through grading? So that is my area of focus right now. Any other comments on this? Yes, Ms. Dr. Deloria. You put yourself on mute. You were unmuted and you put yourself on mute.
How's that? Sorry. I'll be brief. I know it's late. You know, we're talking about this all the time, either with the principals or an executive cabinet. I'd like you all to think about a time, either in your career or in your personal life, when a problem came up that you couldn't get to a solution. And maybe you didn't get to the right solution right away, but at some point you got a solution. And we're not in that kind of a situation right now. Never in my career, in my life, have I been in a situation where there is no answer. Because the truth is, our students shouldn't be learning through distance learning. They don't have the executive functions they need to be on their own the way we've asked them to do. They just don't have, a few of the kids do, but keep in mind executive functions don't completely develop until, for boys especially, their mid-20s. And at the same time, keep in mind that teachers went to school to teach in person. And I've been in classrooms, and let me tell you, the difference is day and night to what we saw last spring to what we're seeing now. We have teachers reading books on how to do it, how to figure it out, how to get more people involved. We have our MTSS. Mr. Ochapinti asked, what's our MTSS? Take a look at what our MTSS, our tiers are for attendance and engagement. We've got the tiers in place. So I too, when I looked at the data, was surprised that it wasn't a lot worse. And that's, you know, I guess it is what it is. But thank goodness for our principals. They've been working with their schools on PLCs. And so they've been developing those relationships and been focusing on those equity issues, you know, the equity in practice, you know, the gap in practice. And so those conversations around grades and how are you helping students, those were already happening before we came into COVID. So I just don't want people to be too hard on themselves. There is no answer. The answer is there should be no COVID and our students should be in school. I don't know how to make that happen. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. I don't know if we have any other comments, questions. All right, thank you so much for that presentation, Ms. Bach, and to everyone else who contributed. Moving on now to our administration COVID-19 response update, turning it over to Dr. Deloria.
Okay, well, I already gave you kind of an update on the metrics and I sent an email too. So I know we have a lot of updates tonight, so I'll turn first to Ms. Van Raphorst. Do you have anything to update the board on? Okay.
I do
Ms.
not.
Presta? Okay, thank you. Ms. Presta?
I do
She put in
not.
the chat, she doesn't.
Okay. All right, then I will turn it over to Ms. Baca.
I have something, so I will share. All right. So this part of the COVID update, I will be talking about the preliminary results of the distance learning survey that was administered about a week and a half ago. So the objective is to share the survey results and discuss whether to allow selected students to be on campus to receive services during the fall of 2020. So the topics covered are a brief survey overview, the process and the timeline, the participants of the survey, a brief information on how our stakeholders rated distance learning thus far, the survey results, and then discussion and next steps. So as far as the survey overview, the questions asked in the survey were reviewed by Executive Cabinet. And then we reviewed this in a return to school committee meeting. And then they gave me feedback. I made adjustments. I emailed to them and they continued to give me feedback. And we came up with a survey that we had sent to students, parents, and staff. So the timeline was, it was administered starting September 24th. It was emailed to all of the stakeholders and it ended on October 1st in preparation for reporting the preliminary results. So again, we sent this to students, parents, and staff, and it was translated in Spanish and in Tagalog. So the questions were, if the county data allows for students to return this semester, fall 2020, because as you know, right now we are in full distance learning and students are restricted from coming on campus to receive services. How open are stakeholders to allowing selected students to receive the following services? So students with IEP may need assessments on site. There may be some intensive tutoring needed for some students, a handful of students. And also some of the students may need some mental health counseling and a one-on-one face-to-face meeting may be in need. So we wanted to see how our participants would react to that. Also, we ask a second layer of a question, like how open are they to allowing athletic conditioning to happen during this semester? How about band practice, student productions, ASB, clubs? And then we ask them when safe to do so, list the top 3 groups of students that to bring back on campus. So we give some examples. And then rate the overall distance learning experience, provide on the comments on the rating, and then provide suggestions to help improve distance learning. So the participation, there were 1,283 participants, and that's a breakdown for each of the school site. And at each of the school site is a combination again of students, parents, and staff. But this bigger part right here is the general population of respondents. So we had 253 out of the 4,156 students took the survey, and that's about 6%. Their parents and guardians, and this is under the assumption that one parent would submit for one of their students. So 750 parents and or guardians responded, and that's about 18%. 174 of the 255 staff members fill out the survey, and that's 68%. 90 out of the 206 or 44% was from the classified staff, and 16 out of 30 were from the administrators. So as far as rating the overall distance learning experience, 1, which is red, is considered unsatisfied, and blue is satisfied. So just looking at the bands here, like a general pattern, almost all of our stakeholders, are pretty happy or satisfied with distance learning currently. And I will, during the weekly recap, I will also share the comments with you so that you can see some of the comments provided by our stakeholders. So the survey results, again, 2 questions. How open are they to allowing students with IEP for tutoring or for counseling versus athletic conditioning, band practice, and so on. So question 1 and 2, I combined and I separated it by the 2 groups. So the middle band, again, is 50% of the respondees. And so as you can see, for students with IEP, tutoring and counseling, again, there's, it's really towards the not open or somewhat open. And it's even higher for the athletic conditioning or band practice, where our stakeholders felt like, that just not safe to allow students at this point. So with question 1, this is specifically for selected students to receive IEP assessments or counseling or tutoring on site. This is broken down at the site level. And as you can see, a lot of, almost all of our schools feel really strongly to not allow students to return on campus during fall 2020. So that is by site. And then I broke it down by stakeholder as well. So you can see more of our administrators are open to allowing some of the students, but our certificated staff, our classified staff, and our students feel like now is not the time. Now for question 2. This is how open are they to allowing athletic conditioning, band practice, student productions, ASB. And so with this, again, you can see the same pattern. Most all of our schools are not open at all to allowing these groups of students to be on campus during this semester. And this is broken down by stakeholder. And it's the same pattern for that as well. And so with that, again, I'm going to open up for discussion on whether the board is open to allowing a small group of students to receive services. And with that, I'm going to stop my screen. And Dr. Deloya, I don't know if you want Doreen to present right after me or have a discussion now and then give it to Doreen.
I say let's just go ahead and open it up now to the board. Or to anyone that wants to have a comment.
I'll comment. Yeah, thank you for that survey. It's good to see that there are different takes on where we are and understanding that our community has different needs. I would say just my answer would be, I'm always open to providing services that need to be provided, but I would predicate that with it being in the healthiest, safest way we can deliver those. And so, as was mentioned earlier by Ms. Casey and I think other people just stood the call, until the science and the data is clear and really the resources are there to provide that, I would proceed with more caution than any rush. You know, even when I think people feel like they're ready, maybe our students or families or maybe select staff. I think for the better interest of everybody and in terms of health, given where the science is and bubbles and where people are interacting and not understanding how asymptomatic transmission of COVID works and how it's aerosolized. I just feel like it's good to know that data. Personally, though, I think until the data is fully reliable from county, state, and national levels, I would proceed with more caution and say just hold off.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, okay, you guys, go ahead, Trustee Lee.
Yeah, yeah, I would just concur with Ms. Sargenti. The data is pretty clear. The survey data is really clear. I mean, those blue bars are pretty large, and even the red bars. So pretty much folks would rather that we just remain as is, and that's where I've been as well. So just wanted to reiterate that myself.
Trustee Ian Garrett.
I'm just gonna go ahead and agree quickly as well. I mean, given what I said on my testimony, my board report, I absolutely feel like whatever is gonna be the safest and most possible prevention of spread of COVID in our community. So, that's what I'm gonna go by, so.
Trustee Tata.
Yeah, I think we have a conviction that safety's first. And even though I didn't think there were enough parents or students who took the survey, even with that in mind, I mean, I don't think it's just not enough to say that we can bring anyone back, We've got to go with the science in our community.
Trustee Casey, I see you. I'm just going to say really quickly, I said Trustee Casey, President Casey, that, I appreciate the survey because it's good to know. Like, I think that's good information to have because that to me reflects that we're educating our community well on why we're at home. But at the same time, science is dictating my decisions because there was a huge community push to have in-person graduations, right? And that wasn't smart at that time either. So the governor changed the metrics, and I appreciate that because it made it easier for me to justify my decisions, in my opinion, and also adding the equity metric and the metric. And I think that's the huge metric that we need to really pay attention to, especially in terms of our district. That equity metric hasn't moved. And and a lot of those students and their families live in our district. So my fear is that we could be doing potentially more harm to those communities that are the most affected, because those are the ones that we probably bringing back into the classroom and possibly causing spread. So nothing has changed versus with the services that are offered, with the testing, with the contact tracing. It still isn't adequate enough for me to feel safe bringing people into the classrooms. We are still meeting via Zoom. And so I'm thinking, if we're not comfortable being in a room together, I'm not comfortable asking other people to be in a room together. And it makes no sense to me to bring people in if we're only one spot away from going back to being closed. So I think we should be, whatever the colors are, I forget what the color spread is, but we should be more than one spot away from us being closed again, because we know the county's gonna have to close because the equity matrix hasn't moved, and they have to make a significant gap, a dent in that equity matrix in order to stay moving up. And let me tell you, from working with the county, that's not gonna happen anytime soon. So I feel like we just need to stay the course of what we committed to from the beginning and saying we are gonna stay at home for this semester. Turning it over to Ms. Casey.
Thank you. Basically, you said mostly what I was going to say, so I'm not going to repeat it, except for to say that I would really like to see some kind of testing for sure, you know, before we bring people back. I feel like the safety of having people tested, students included, before they come back. So I really have a big push for that. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, kicking it back to Ms. Baca.
Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn it to Ms. Basolino to talk about athletic conditioning.
Yeah, let me see if I can. See, I'm trying to find it right now. I want it. So just share my screen here. There it is. So good evening. I'm here to review our current athletics for the 2020 school year. The purpose of what I'm about to review with you is just to provide information on the 2020-21 season, the changes made due to pandemic, and to seek JUHSD board direction on when athletes and coaches can begin conditioning. So the topics I'm going to be covering this evening are CIF CCS competition calendar, specifically season 1, the start date and the teams affected. The financial considerations, potential costs of travel to away competitions, and then number 3, draft JUHSD 2020 conditioning guidelines, protections to be put in place for athletes and staff. The California Interscholastic Federation, in conjunction with the Central Coast section, determined the 2020-21 competition calendar. This is a picture of a normal year. So as you can see, it breaks up into 3 seasons, and they kind of separate all the sports. This year, they separated it into 2 seasons. Season 1, December 14th through February and March, and then season 2, February and March through May and June. Not only did they push the start date until December 14th, but they also pushed a lot of sports together in the spring with practices and competitions overlapping. If I click down here, it should bring us to the CCS calendar that's on the CCS website. And you'll notice that the start date is in red, little red there, and it's December 28th would be the start date for contests. So that would be the first time you could hold games and scrimmages. And for football, only scrimmages can be conducted the week of December 28th through January 2nd. The first date for games will be the week of January 4th through January 9th. So financial considerations, specifically in regards to transportation. In a normal year, we would use district buses for most teams to travel to away games. We would use outside bus companies only if the district could not support the travel due to conflict of either not enough buses or no access to bus or bus drivers. Parents could also follow the JUHSD volunteer guidelines to drive multiple members of the team to help with the finances and the expenses, to keep the expenses down. This year, due to COVID, there are currently restrictions in place that severely limit the number of people who can be on a bus to about a third of their capacity. Quotes from bus companies, and these numbers can change as restrictions decrease. For 12 passengers on a 56-seater, so one passenger per every other row. The 56-seater for 6 hours would be $1,275. 9 to 10 passengers on a 40-seater would be $1,120 for 6 hours. Families can transport their own athletes, but they can only take family members that live in the same household. Next, I want to kind of talk about the importance of conditioning and preseason prep. I've been collaborating with the athletic directors and Marcus Peppers, establishing our district draft conditioning guidelines. The guidelines are very similar to the guidelines being used by both San Mateo District and Sequoia District since last June. The ADs have been working with their site administrative teams regarding implementation. There are 3 overall topics that need to be put in place. Following all site, county, district safety protocols, facility setup and management, supervision, and communication. As I click on our draft, you can see that this is a very detailed and thorough document that follows the latest health protocols, being very strict about who comes on, what their job is, how they should take care of themselves, how they should participate, that all athletes would be checking in, coaches would wear face masks. I'm just going to briefly go over this, but it is 3 pages of protocols that each school site would follow to ensure both student and staff safety, including a thorough check-in as they come onto campus. The importance of conditioning prior to the season starting. On March 13th, 2020, all sports stopped in the Jefferson Union High School District. In a normal year, athletes and coaches would be conditioning for their sports in the spring and throughout the summer. As a former high school and college coach myself, I can confirm that preseason conditioning is vital. Coaches condition to provide strategic, targeted, specific planning to enhance lower body, upper body, core, cardio, stretching, flexibility, and nutrition. They're providing skills needed for students' physical safety, how to tackle properly, how to block at the net, teaching offensive and defensive plays, provide much needed time for athletes and coaches and parents to build effective teamwork. Oops, sorry. Other considerations. Senior athletes an opportunity for college and applications for potential scholarships, school culture and student connection. Good to practice site protocols with students and staff that want to be on site. Student access and equity.
How will students get to after-school conditioning? Public buses are still not allowing full capacity. Very little public transportation into and out of Pacifica. We currently have facility rentals. We are currently renting some of our fields and pools to outside child and adult athletic programs. Options for board direction. Move ahead with conditioning as soon as MOU can be amended. No conditioning, start practice December 14th, 2020, with first day for all contests, scrimmages, and games starting December 28th. Amend MOU. No conditioning at this time. Monitor COVID monthly and report back to the board.
Thank you. Opening up for comments. Trustee Lee.
I'm not even sure where to begin with this. You know, given what we just talked about, this is nuts. to be quite honest. I mean, Major League Baseball at the start of their season had what, 2 teams that had to quarantine for nearly a week. The NFL just this weekend had to postpone a couple of games because of 2 teams. Only the NBA has been unscathed because they've lived in a bubble for 2 months.
Disney World.
Right, and same with the NHL. You know, I mean, if professional athletes can't be trusted, we all know what teenagers are like. So I'll just leave that there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't see if there's a way for us to do this safely. So if we can't do this safely, then that's been the commitment of the board, that we're only going to do things that we know for sure we can do safely. I don't know how you play football safely right now. And to Andy's point, the NFL can't figure that out either. And since we don't have access to Disney World, I'm just not seeing how we are able to do this effectively and efficiently. I know this is really hard for our student athletes and our coaches, but I think we also need to, you know, fully embrace the reality of the world that we live in, and that we are getting ready to head into what is probably going to be a huge second wave, and on top of flu, the regular flu. So now is not the time to loosen up and start doing more. Now is the time to kind of stay the course and even hunker down a bit and back off of some of the things that we've started. And I know that's hard because we just talked about how I have to lay down during meetings, but this is what we have to do to stay safe until we can get, you know, some real guidance in the direction from our federal government on top of hopefully a vaccine. And this is also why, you know, it's critical again for all of us to be diligent in wearing masks and social distancing. So that's all I have to say. Right now, I'm on the last option, which is to not move forward on anything, to stay the course until we are at a better place with COVID, because the county is getting ready to go back to the lower tier any minute now.
Totally agree. That's all I have to say. I mean, droplets. I mean, you know, there's no guarantee we'll keep our kids and our coaches safe. So let's not take any chances. We're committed to staying at home through the end of this semester at least. And you got to trust the science. That's all.
Just what you believe.
I don't have anything else to say except for that too. Sorry, Nick.
No, I was just gonna say the same. I'll take this opportunity to praise our staff for all the work that goes into planning for things that we can't plan around, right, because of circumstances out of our control. So, you know, thank you, Ms. Baspino, for putting that together with, of course, our district. I think that we need to think of those things in advance. And I mean, as somebody who also comes from family of athletes, I think a lot of us know like physical fitness is all part of that. And I think a part of the health and mental health that we need to take consideration for our community, because it is vital. But I mean, those are the kind of things, just like we're talking about before, you know, everybody's been saying, if we can ensure that for our students in the classroom, and outdoors is, it can be better because there's more, you could say, just open space and more circulation of air. But yeah, like everybody's saying, I don't know that the science can provide us that stability yet. And I don't know if our bubbles can be like Justin was saying, as strong as even in the NBA. Like it's very hard to do. But thank you for presenting that, because I think people do want to have an idea of how that would even look like. But I do think I would just hold off on that myself.
And we do need to have a plan, because the other thing people need to realize is like when there's a vaccine, that doesn't mean we can all go back to, it's still going to be a long process to get back to normal. So those protocols that are in that plan that was just presented are going to be needed at some point, even when we all are able to have access to a vaccine. It's still going to be a slow process to get back to normal. And some of these efforts are still going to be needed probably even next school year. So I'm glad that the work has been done. So when we do need to do that, we're ready to do that. But in my opinion, we're nowhere near that place right now. Dr. Deloria.
So I agree with much of what you're saying. I do want to remind everybody that the hardest job in any school district is that of the high school principal. And one of the reasons, I can list a million, but one of the reasons is you have organizations like CIF making decisions way too early about when the sports season is going to start. So what you have are principals who have to answer to the community. Well, why is CIF saying that practice can start on the 14th and then on the 28th, that's when you're going to have your first scrimmage or your first cross country match or whatever. And so that, I just want you to know what principals are going to be enduring. And I think it was really good for them to hear tonight, because principals, your script should be that the health and safety of students and staff continues to be our top priority. And we'll continue to monitor, but right now, no conditioning. And I'm sorry that CIF has put you in that position. I just want to say that.
All right, are there any other COVID-19 updates? Oh, okay, moving on to board policies. Trustee Murphy, the Pledge of Allegiance is going to be part of the discussion of order of business in that board policy. So we're just going to hold that until when we're going to go through the other policies first. So just asking any of the other board members if they have any questions or comments, and also opening up to Dr. Laurie, any questions or comments on any other BPs or ARs. Nope, okay. So moving on to the board bylaw 9231.1, which is the order of business, which includes the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'll turn it over to Trustee Murphy, who wanted to discuss the board not saying the pledge.
Thank you, President Salahuddin. Sorry, I know it's been a long night, everyone, so I'll try and keep this brief. I just wanted to, speak my mind on this topic. I know, since the beginning of the school year, the board has decided to forego the pledge. And I think, I understand all the reasoning behind that. And you're right when you say that the pledge says "and justice for all," and right now that isn't what we're seeing. And I support your decision to not participate in reciting a pledge that you don't believe is accurately reflected in the country we live in. That said, I personally was not, able to voice my input regarding what the pledge means to me, and my opinions on it when we first made that decision as a board. And I would, I'm taking this opportunity now to do that. To me, as I said, yes, I agree that, the values of this country are not being reflected in our everyday society. But I do think that, by not saying the pledge, we're also, in a way, almost giving up on those values, almost giving up on striving for that. At least that's the way I see it. And I feel that, by saying the pledge, I'm pledging not only to the America I see now, but to the America I want to see, to the America that reflects those values. And I believe that, you know, I should be able to do that. I believe anyone who wants to do that should be able to, and anyone who doesn't should be able to do that as well. I think, going forward, if, we were given the option to, you know, if those who wanted to recite the pledge could, and those who decided not to, could stay out, or, they could decide not to, I think that's fine. I think that allows, everyone to voice or not voice what they want to, and provides an equal opportunity for everyone, to, show what they believe in. Um, I I'm a big sports fan myself, and I know, all the, drama with Colin Kaepernick a few years back, taking a knee for the anthem. And I think, whether or not you agree with what he was doing, um, he had the opportunity to, not stand for the national anthem. But the national anthem was still played. And I think if we could, maybe parallel that situation here, I think that would be the best way for everyone to show, support for what they believe in. Because I know that this board values, the voice of its students. Um, and this is something that I have felt passionate about. This is something that other students have reached out to me about. And I just want to make sure that everyone's voice is heard. Whether that is by, and your voice can be heard by saying nothing at all. I understand that. And I think by providing an opportunity for everyone's, views to be displayed, I think that is, the best course of action here. Um, those are just my thoughts on it. Um, so if anyone else would like to, comment, I just felt it was something that needed to be asked. Um, and, I appreciate, you allowing me to, speak my mind on this topic. It means a lot, that I, feel safe in this environment to express what I want to. And I know that, you all care about what we all have to say. And so I appreciate you giving me this opportunity. So thank you.
No problem. Opening up to the student trustees first, if any student trustees have any comments on the pledge and the board choosing not to say it.
I have something to say.
Mhm.
So I understand where Joe's coming from, and I also understand why the district did this. So, to me, I try to avoid being like super nationalist about stuff. I don't know. I just think historically, like nationalism, you know, I guess in some cases it wasn't a bad thing, but then at the same time it was used to justify like racism and oppression and all that. And I don't know. So the pledge to me was like never really that of an important thing. I understand why it is to some people. But also I think I don't have a problem with Trustee Murphy's suggestion just because, you know, like we're an understanding group from what I've observed. And this isn't like a Colin Kaepernick situation where you'll lose your career for like, you know, peacefully protesting something. But then at the same time, like, I can see that sort of saying the pledge can be, you know, like offensive to people who have just been systematically like oppressed by this country. And, you know, like the current situation, it's just like kind of crazy how long, you know, like African Americans, for example, have been suffering in this country and like disproportionately targeted by, you know, like police brutality and other inequities that they've had to deal with. So, I mean, I see both sides of the, you know, both sides of this debate, and I respect any decision the board makes.
Thank you. Any other student trustees that want to comment on this topic? No? Okay, opening up to the board members. To the adult board members. Mr. Ochapinti?
Yeah, so I just want to say, want to appreciate bringing this issue to the table, and I also want to appreciate, I think the stance the district has taken, that we've taken in terms of addressing it with a lack of, with actually not, intentionally not, you know, taking a pledge. But Trustee Murphy, you make a very good point, and Trustee Boussariet, same. I think the first thing we have to think about, and I think this is brought up, is the sense of not giving up, right? And sense of not giving up is staying true to something, right? And in terms of maintaining some kind of not just allegiance, but identification with something. And I think one of the things I think about as a teacher, you know, and we don't take the pledge in my classes when, you know, at any point, I think, and we've done this here as a board and throughout the term of my being elected official, it doesn't always sit perfectly well with me, you know, as a person of color, and as also somebody who is also white, who's mixed race in this country. We have to remember that there are many, many people in our country of all walks of life who did not pledge allegiance to this flag. And so nationalism being what it is, abolition to end slavery, the fight to, you know, defend indigenous people here, not just, of course, indigenous people, but all people here, and to create a more just nation. I think what President Salahuddin mentioned and was clear earlier is, you know, until there's justice for all in this country, these statements like a pledge, they don't ring true for all of us. Even though we have stuck by that pledge, our country has not stuck by us. And so I think it is a bold statement, like you said, to make, and as also was stated, I think that it's something that we have to actively discuss, and we talk about this in terms of creating more equity and diversity and inclusion in our curriculum. Part of that is ethnic studies. Part of that is just having these discussions. These are hard discussions. When my students bring it up, my first impression is that they don't know something. Isn't that they don't know something, it's that we haven't had an opportunity to discuss it. In my household growing up, we talked about these things sometimes, but it was kind of understood that we all are here as part of this country, but the flag does not identify us. And so I think if we want to reclaim that and we want to not give up on that, that protest is a part of that. And protest is as much a part of our Constitution as any part of that pledge should be. But that pledge has been used in many ways to abuse those civil rights. And so without giving a longer speech about it, I'm sure people have other things to say about it. And I do welcome that as ongoing conversations. I would actually recommend actually maybe taking a vote in terms of democracy between the student trustees and between, I mean, we haven't opened it for a vote, we just took direction. I think we all agreed as as a governing board to not take a pledge. And I respect that because I agree with that as well, obviously. But if a majority of people feel otherwise, then I think we should go from there. And that's what democracy is. That said, I would like to see some further discussion on it. And I'd like to hear from other people as well, because it is an important issue. And I think we're all moving in the same spirit, but I would like to see some that unity in action.
Trustee Andy Lee.
First of all, I just want to thank Trustee Murphy for his courage to bring this topic up. I think it's important that you brought this up and for discussion for all of us. I hadn't really thought about it, to be quite honest. I think it's so easy when you learn from a young age how to recite the pledge, you don't really think what the words mean, right? But then you realize that all of us, we've taken an oath of office to defend the Constitution of the United States. And for me, that's the primary thing, that it's almost redundant to say the pledge at every meeting when we've already sworn an oath to uphold the Constitution. And and it's terrible that I look at the flag today and recognize what it's being used to represent. And I think that's the part that upsets me more, and that's gone into my head. But I appreciate the thoughtfulness you put into your suggestion, Trustee Murphy, and I think it's something that we're not deciding this tonight, but I appreciate the thoughtfulness you put into your suggestion. And it's something that I'll need to think about, when this comes back. But again, thank you for bringing it to our attention, and I appreciate you for doing this. So thank you.
Trustee Tejada.
I also want to thank Trustee Murphy for his thoughtfulness and being brave to bring this before us, even though, the board had taken a different stance, that you brought this up to us, and that's why you're one of our strongest, student voices. You're just so impressive, and I understand where you're coming from. But this whole issue has had me thinking about what the Pledge of Allegiance means and the flag means. My father, I'm very proud of him. He has a Bronze Star. He has a Congressional Gold Medal, and he fought in World War II. He was a POW. He loves this country, and that's what I grew up with. But I always had a problem blindly reciting the pledge since I was a kid, because I listened to the words, and when we'd have our board meetings, after Colin Kaepernick took a knee, I at first went, oh my gosh, oh brother, what's he trying to do? But then the pushback, the threats made to him and anyone else who followed suit, that's when I understood why he took that knee, a very powerful yet simple gesture. And this man's career is over. And there were times when we did the pledge at our meetings where I did not want to stand. I just wanted to sit it out, or I wouldn't recite it, because reciting the pledge turned into what was, for me as an Asian, first generation Asian here, we had to totally assimilate, be as American as we could be. And part of that was the pride that my father had from being a soldier in World War II and bringing us here to America. I love this country. I still think it's the best country. But it was very organic how it came about in our board meeting when we decided we weren't going to do the pledge. It came from a very strong place in our hearts. And you know, I don't, I don't wish, I think those who wish to recite the pledge, that's up to them, you know, I mean, kids do it all the time, but for me, right now, I can't, not in good conscience.
Mrs. Casey?
I had a lot of things I wanted to say about this, but, you know, we've been forced and forced and forced to do a lot of things and forced to say the pledge. And for centuries, the people who wrote the pledge, their views were the ones that we had to say. And I just agree with us not saying it until the oppression switches around a little bit. How, you know, let's not have any oppression. Let's get this and lift all of us. I just, the under God part bothers me, and the injustice for all. There is not justice for all. And until there's more justice for all, I feel like that we shouldn't be saying it. And, you know, the whole idea of us giving a space so that people that want to say it can say it, again, the rest of us have been forced to say it and forced to do things and forced to endure the oppression that's been happening in this country for centuries. So I just think we should not say it right now. Thank you.
Trustee Ian Garrett?
I'm just going to add to the comment what Ms. Tejada and Ms. Casey said totally rang true to my own personal experiences. I definitely appreciate Trustee Murphy's voice and expressing his opinion. And, you know, where I'm coming from as far as not saying the pledge is, you know, from my own personal life experiences. You know, I am an immigrant. I came here to this, you know, my parents brought us to this country for a better life. And, you know, when I'm out there in the world and my children are here and I see all that's going on, I just don't feel like we're being celebrated, and that we are here to assimilate but not appreciate it. So when my husband tells me, he comes home and says he's at the grocery store and somebody's thinking that he's going to steal their purse, or that, you know, I go out with my children and I hear whispers in the background about what they look like, then, you know, then I don't feel like the country appreciates us or the people here, you know, or that when President Salahuddin tells me she's had, you know, issues because her son's walking down the street or being harassed just for doing nothing, you know, like, how can I sit here and be proud and say the pledge for my own personal beliefs, you know, or that my LGBT brothers and sisters weren't able to marry for a long time. Like, how is that justice for them as well, you know? So until we are progressively making some changes and having some stance, and, you know, I feel like this is our way to say, you know what, enough is enough. We want to celebrate everyone and have everyone be appreciated, or at least work towards the equity, then I also cannot justifiably get up here every time and just say, okay, well, I'm going to pledge allegiance to something that's not having any loyalty back to me. So, but that's all I have to say. Thank you, though.
Thank you. So I just want to say, because this started with me saying, if I asked the rest of the board if someone else would lead the pledge after the death of George Floyd, because I didn't want to do it. And the rest of the board said they didn't want to do it either. And then we just continued not doing the pledge. So we never really discussed it. So I'm glad that we're having the discussion now so that I can put more comment in. But I will say I come from a military family. My grandfather fought in World War II. My father fought in Vietnam. And other members of my family have joined the military. When my grandfather, after he fought in World War II, he came home. He was in his uniform and he drove to 4 different cities and he wasn't allowed to vote. My father, I learned how to behave around. I'm trying not to be emotional because I want to get this out. So sorry. I learned how to behave around police officers by watching my father be repeatedly pulled over and taken out of the car and sometimes handcuffed while my sisters and I sat in the car, and he would say to us, "Can't get upset. This is how you behave. Look at me, girls." And then having to repeat that with my own children. When I get pulled over, and when we get taken out of the car, and having to say to my children, "It'll be over in a minute. You just have to stay calm." They go through the car sometimes. You just let them do what they want to. And saying that to them when they were little, like, this is how we stay safe. And now they've seen videos of people do that and still be shot and still be killed. And they turn to me and they said, "I thought that's what you said. You do this, Mom, and you stay safe." And I have nothing to give them because I can't. Where is the liberty? Where is the liberty? Where is the liberty for myself? Where was the liberty for my grandfather? Where was the liberty for my dad? Where is the liberty for my children? And my story is not unique. There are so many people in our district, that have similar stories. That I was charged with the felony at the same time as Joseph Waters, who was the trustee for Jefferson Elementary. We were both in court, 2 elected officials. We were both in court for felonies for the same time for traffic violations. I was able to get mine kicked. It took, I don't know how long and how much money and how many lawyers, and he wasn't able to, and he took his life because of it. Where is the liberty? Where is the justice? He was charged for something that most people would get tossed out. I was driving with a suspended tag, but I know that I can't have a suspended registration on my car because the minute I go driving, I get pulled over within days, every single time. I have friends who are white who've driven for months with tags that are that are expired, and they say they never get pulled over. They were surprised that I'm so crazy about it. I'm dealing right now with my son who has ongoing mental health issues, and he was having a mental health episode. And in my head, I'm like, well, I hope no one calls the police. I hope no one calls the police. Where is the liberty? Where is the justice? How long am I supposed to wait? And I know that it is bothering some people that we aren't saying it, but that to me is the definition of equity. That some people have to give up or they're inconvenienced for a little while so that we can get justice for others. And I know it's an inconvenience for some people. This is just a little thing that I'm saying, give me the moment to say in a public meeting that all of us are still waiting for our liberty and justice. That shouldn't be too big of an ask for people who are blessed with that don't have to have that conversation with their kids, that don't have to worry about their son walking around a mall, that don't have to worry about their kids driving, that know that the reason why none of my kids drive is because they don't want to get pulled over by the police like their mom does. I'm asking for a moment in a meeting to say, we all stand united in saying this is wrong. Unless all of us have liberty and justice, then none of us should want to say the pledge. So that's where I'm at.
I apologize for any discomfort I've caused. I know this is an uncomfortable topic for a lot of people. But it had to be done. This was something that needed to be talked about. And I offer my condolences, but I don't apologize for bringing this up because it needed to happen one way or another. And, you know, all of you people are role models to me. You've given me a glimpse into the adult world, into, you know, what real life is like. You've given me, you know, opportunities that I wouldn't have anywhere else. You know, I'm absolutely grateful for that. And, you know, you allowing me to voice my opinion on this is something I'll never forget. And I truly do appreciate it. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. I'm back now. It's fine. You don't have to. It's fine. I'm glad we had the discussion too, so that we can talk about it and really say what we needed to say. And I don't mean to get emotional about it. It's just, this is a hard time and a hard year. And these are hard things. So this is only a discussion item. If we want to bring it back, the board can make an agendized item to bring it back for an action, and so we can vote on whether or not we want to continue doing it. But this was just a discussion. So unless anyone has anything else to say.
Well, I just want to thank Mr. Murphy for bringing it up. And it had to be said, and you actually gave me a time to reflect on myself, you know, the meaning of the pledge, the meaning of this country. I mean, because you brought it up, I had to think about it. And this is the first time I've talked about it out loud. So I thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you. Moving on to a good thing, move on to our equity statement and draft equity statement, equity policy. Turning it over to Ms. Presta.
Thank you, President Salahuddin. We met, as we heard at the beginning of the meeting, with the trustees talking about our equity work on Saturday. So we had a meeting on Saturday where we focused on a few things: the role of the governance team, prioritizing our equity work, and we spent a lot of time working on an equity statement. We wanted to bring it to this meeting as a discussion item, so that the whole community could see that statement and have a discussion about it. So it is presented here. I don't have it up. Oh, actually, here I do. I'd like to read it to you before we have discussion. JUHSD uses our educational systems to right current and historical inequities by examining and understanding how our decision-making reinforces or interrupts injustice. We embrace inclusion, value diversity, respect all viewpoints, and educate ourselves in order to confront and dismantle systemic inequities to bring about a more just society. JUHSD is committed to engage, educate, and empower all students with intentional focus on those underserved, inadequately served, or disenfranchised by educational institutions and systems, eliminating disparities in educational outcomes. So I'll kick it back to you, President Salahuddin, for discussion.
Thank you. Opening it up for comments or any questions about the draft equity statement.
Well, we were there working on it together, so I like how it was formed, and I think it's really comprehensive, and I'm glad two of our student trustees were there to give their input.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions about the draft equity statement before we kind of give direction?
I just want to add real quick, just again, really proud of the work that we all did collectively to do this. And I'm excited to see how this will inform the way we move forward, you know, and as this becomes embedded in our culture. So I'm really grateful to everybody, and look forward to making this happen, truly happen.
Great. So I think unless anyone else has any comments or questions about it. So I'm going to turn it or see if we can use April and anyone else in the district to help us figure out like a communication plan around the equity statement so that we can vet it through our community, get their opinions and any feedback. And so whatever that process that you think is appropriate to do that, and then to bring it back to the board to vote on to approve and adopt as our equity statement. Once we do that, I think we should bring back the board policy on order of business and add that to the order of business so that it's always a part of our agenda, that it is said before every board meeting. Because I think those are the things we need to remind why and how and what the process is for doing our work. So I don't know if anyone has any other comments or any guidance before we move on to the policy. Nope. Okay. So now the equity policy, Ms. Presta.
Sorry, I don't think we have the equity policy on this board agenda.
We do. We have the statement and policy.
My apologies. You know, this is real life. My son came in here with a problem just before I threw me completely off. So I don't have my agenda up, but we did have a draft equity policy that we did also talk about. I don't think we made any changes to it on Saturday. We were going to make some changes following. So if it is included, I don't think that we were going, I think that we had already adopted it, the CSBA policy, and then we were going to amend it at a later date.
Yes, after we approved the equity statement, we would amend.
I think we have more work to do on the equity policy.
Right. So how do we go about amending the policy? When are we going to do that? That was the feedback that we're looking to get tonight.
I think after we vote to adopt the equity statement, then we can work on revising the equity policy.
Okay. So do you want to do that in a board meeting, or do you want to wait for the next work study?
I would suggest another work study, actually.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it took us, you know, two Saturday mornings just to get to this point. I think the policy itself will probably take easily a couple more Saturdays.
Okay, so we probably should schedule that now, you know, sometime in the future. I don't know. So we can Ms. Tejada and I can work with Candace to see if scheduling that sometime in the future. It doesn't have to be this month, maybe next month, to work on, with not having another work study, so we can start amending the current policy to be a little bit more inclusive.
I think there's I think we have a workshop on the 14th or something.
Do we have one on the 14th?
November
Okay.
14th.
November,
Yeah, I think
November?
so. Yeah.
November
Yeah, of
14th.
November. Yeah.
Okay.
Just FYI.
No, that's great. Thank you. Okie dokie. Unless there's anything else on that, moving on. Resources. So we have two items on this that's not showing. So we have this one, which is 14A1, and we have the new 14A2. So starting out with 14A1, which is a job description for the Associate Superintendent of Human Resources and Student Services, turning it over to Ms. Presta.
Thank you. Oh, I've never muted myself. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just so that I can talk through the attachments. So let me know if it works. Monica, can you give me a thumbs up if you see it? Okay, beautiful. So what I did is I've attached the current administrative structure at the district office level. It's my proposal to not increase staffing, to keep the same FTEs, but to change the structure a bit. So currently, as you can see, we've got a superintendent and 3 associate superintendents of education services, business services, and human resources. And then we've got 8 directors. We've got director of student services, special ed, and so on. And what I'm proposing is to change the structure as I move into the superintendent role, change the structure to still have 3 associate superintendents, but rather than having an associate superintendent of HR, make that an associate superintendent of HR and student services. And then the director that is currently a director of student services, instead fill that position or create a position of director of HR. We have a job description that has been used in the past for the director of HR, so I didn't bring that to you today, but we've posted for the director of HR. So I'm asking for board approval for this new job description that is also attached, creating an associate superintendent of HR and student services. And again, not changing the level of staffing, but just changing some of the focus in the staffing. I won't go through the, so that's sort of an explanation of why. Here is the job description. It's quite lengthy. I'm sure you read it on your own. But the reason for this is that the structure of the 3 associate superintendents in the executive cabinet has worked really well. And looking at the talent of the people that we have here, the next item is that I really feel it's important to have Doreen Basuino as part of the executive cabinet at an executive cabinet level. This is a time, what we've been talking about tonight has just focused on what a challenging time it is. And I think it's going to be really important to have all of the best voices at the executive cabinet level. So I'm mixing the 2 items, but they somehow go together. So in this item, I just ask that the board approve this new structure, this change in title, and this job description.
Thank you. Opening up for questions or comments. No, can I get a motion?
Move to approve job description for Associate Superintendent of Human Resources and Student Services.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, now moving on to the new item 14A2, which is the appointment of Doreen Basuino into the new role that we just approved. turning it back over to Ms. Presta.
Thank you. I'm realizing that I'm not muting myself.
Okay.
So as I referenced in the last item, I recommend that the board appoint Ms. Basuino to this new position of Associate Superintendent of HR and Student Services. She's been a committed and dedicated and trusted member of our community. And I think that she's going to make a great Associate Superintendent. It's my recommendation that the board appoint her.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Congratulations.
So, we talked about this before because the board has a practice of talking to people in closed session before they're appointed, which you can see on our agenda. But just to repeat some of the things that we said out there, Ms. Basuino has been a long-standing member of JUHSD, and her heart beats this district. I've known her for my entire time being a board member. She was one of the first people I met when I started working the parcel tax campaign. And that's why we were friends, because everybody worked on the first parcel tax campaign if you asked them, but really it was just a core group of us, and Doreen was there almost every single day. She ran a phone bank, and that's how I became to love this district, was through seeing the dedication of people like Doreen, and that followed through when she was principal of Terra Nova while my son was there. And I just seeing immediately understanding my son and coming into that role really when Terra Nova was in a really hard time. Like people who weren't in the district at that time have no idea how insane it was, and stepping up into that role. And I knew that we're going to be fine. I said, we were going to have a parent meeting, and once the parents meet with Ms. Basuino, it will calm down. And that's exactly what happened. And she brought really the structure and order that is part of Terra Nova now, started with her being there as principal and really laying that foundational work. And then she brought that same dedication and passion into the district office. And again, really, truly started the work around equity here, because it really started, I was plugging away, trying to figure, and really fearful in myself of like, how real do I want to get in the school district and really talk about this real issues? And it was through the disproportionate, through the state of California, getting disproportionately tagged for the number of special education students we had. And a lot of districts kind of go through the motions, but Ms. Basuino really took it to heart. And that was the meeting, one of the first meetings that she held about equity in our district, where I was like, we can do this. We're capable of doing this. And she kind of opened my eyes to that. So I'm extremely grateful for all the work that she's done and how supportive she's been to this district. So I just want to say from the entire board, congratulations. So opening, giving you the floor to see if there's anything you would like to say.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I am super excited about this opportunity. I appreciate it. I've, as you know, my dad was a football coach at Terra Nova, and all 6 of us children went through TN. I have many relatives go through TN after that. And I think one of the first thing I said when I met Terry was, I'm here to stay. This is my district. This is my community. I live in it. I have many relatives that live in this community, and I've been very fortunate to have very strong people that I've worked with, and I hope to continue to work with. And we're just very fortunate. And when you talk about my transition from Thornton to Terra Nova, unfortunately, those are times that we're having to repeat, where we have our poor principals are having to reintroduce new VPs and having to take on a lot of training and things like that. So I just think it's the job of the district office to support those students and those teachers and the principals and the administrators as much as possible. So I just super appreciate the willingness to let me try it. I'll do my best. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations again. Okay, so moving on to consideration of a future agenda items. If anyone has anything they would like to add to a future agenda. Nope, all right. Moving on to adjournments. So before we close the meeting, we are adjourning tonight's meeting in honor of Dr. Thomas E. Vaughn. Dr. Vaughn passed away on March 29th, 2020. He worked for the district for 34 years, starting September in 1972 to June 2008. That's all the information that I have, but I just want to say that somebody that worked for the district for that long, like, can't even imagine the impact that he's had on students. And, you know, the amount of students that this person probably touched could fill all of our school districts. And someone said he was the Black Student Union Advisor at Projection High School for a long time. Thank you for putting that in there, Lori. So what an amazing, like, to give that much of your life to education, that is just an amazing person. So we're internally grateful for the work that he did, and our hearts and condolences go out to Dr. Vaughn's family, though survived by a wife, son, and many, many loved ones. So we adjourn this meeting in his honor, and thank you for his sacrifices and work that he did for JUHSD while he was part of our community. So with that, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for the principals for hanging out for the whole meeting. Go get some sleep, everyone. Have a good night. Thank you.
Bye. Good night.